Hello everyone and welcome to the Lower Your Shoulder podcast with me, Ben McKelvey.
And Jake Robbins. Let's do it. So, it's happened, Ben. The first skit is out. How do you feel?
I feel really good. It was weird, wasn't it, hitting that the post button, even though we have a whopping 34 followers currently on Instagram.
That's not true. It's now up to 40, Ben.
Is it?
Yeah.
Look at that, going viral, mate. It felt great. It really did. I got messages from people that I haven't spoken to for ages. They were just like, "This is brilliant."
That's cool.
So that was really cool. Yeah, it felt great to get it out. You know, obviously we've been working on this in the background now for nearly 2 years, which seems like a really long time. But if you consider that's making the record and doing all the promo and scripting everything and the filming and the lighting and the figuring out the new mic, the lapel mics, and you know, like we didn't have a clue what we were doing. It was like it's like starting a film production company as well as making a record. So, but yeah, it felt great. How do you feel about it?
I feel really good. I just feel excited to do more, and I feel like now it's a real thing. I mean, obviously, people are like, "Is this just a one-off skit, or is I try to like, oh, there's more. Like we've got more finished skits than we do songs."
Yeah, I think it's probably quite common for bands to kind of, you make like a funny advert or whatever for to promote a single, but actually we've gone down the road of making skits but that follow a series to take people on the journey of these two guys that meet up after school, both having a typical midlife crisis in their 30s and decide to start a punk rock band. And it's funny, like looking back on what we've made, I think I don't know if I enjoyed it more doing the skits and the filming and all that kind of stuff, but certainly as much as the music.
I don't think I realised how much I was going to enjoy it. I don't think we realised how far we were going to take it. Maybe let's go all the way back to talk about how we've got to this point now. We are talking about Doubt Kills music on Instagram. Please give it a follow. It is our new, comedy duo at the moment. It's not even a band. So yeah, we really want to take people on a journey, and we're going to go right back and talk about how we got here, because it really was just something that developed over those 2 years. I'm going to try remember how the band even came to be and how we actually finally got in a room to write songs together, because we've been working together a long time. But I mean, do you remember, why did we actually finally decide to get in a room with some acoustic guitars?
It was, to my memory, it was when we were in tour rehearsals for a solo run of mine when we were supporting Jake Clemens.
Mm-hmm.
And we had like a Academy 2 run for a week. That was great fun. Really loved that. And from my memory, it was either the rehearsals before the tour or it was after that we were messing around, kind of jamming, kind of writing. And I put forward to you that I wanted to make a band, and you weren't keen at all. Even though we were enjoying like writing, you were just like, yeah, I'm done with that shit, man. No way. Never again.
I remember those rehearsals, and just to kind of think back to that, I was very much quite closed, as you're saying, to the idea. And over the years, it took a long time to even get me on stage. Having been in a band, I was like, no, I'm a producer. I did miss it deep down, but I was like, put that to rest in my at the grand old age of 24.
Yeah. It's time to retire. Yeah. I've done all I can. I've done it all.
But there was a lot of hurt there, and failure, and the way you kind of look at yourself. So it took me a long time to kind of open up to the idea of playing live writing music for myself in that kind of sense in a band. And maybe this has become something much different to what we expected. But from those rehearsals, I do remember just being like, oh, I do really enjoy just playing live music.
I mean, the style of music changed dramatically because from my memory, and I've got the demos somewhere of what we made in there, and we actually demoed a few of them in the studio.
Did we?
Like very loosely, yeah.
Okay.
I put some drums down, and it was kind of a punk, sort of angry, loud.
I do remember now,
you know, like atmospheric-y sort of thing, which I actually loved. And there's some songs on there that I would like to revisit at some point. But
there was some cool stuff there.
Yeah, it just wasn't quite like it wasn't. I don't know. It just wasn't exciting.
I think it was just it at that point. It was just a band, and I think the thing with you and me is we're always, let's be honest, a little bit too ambitious with what we do. So it wasn't quite enough because we dipped in making all these kind of videos and fitness and, you know, making adverts and
was
all
the
kinds
thing,
of stuff.
Was the thing that put you off? I mean, obviously you've got the past of, you know, being in a band and touring and then kind of getting hammered a little bit like by the industry. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think most of it comes because I was so married to that. I was like,
we have said it's like the end of a relationship, a band, isn't it?
Ultimately, yes. And I still want to do a full episode on that. You have to be in the right frame of mind. But yeah, ultimately, I knew the commitment. Well, what I thought was the commitment, because all I was relating it to was that old band. Kind of scared. I was like, do I really want to commit fully to that again? And I guess I didn't want the same thing again. So the idea of what we were initially thinking about, that's the only thing I could relate it to. So I thought I was just doing that again. I think, as we developed sort of the idea of the band itself and where we are now, like all the things that actually, I realized that I love the creative world that we've made. And that was actually probably the most important to get me like fully into it rather than just making songs, because ultimately that is what the focus is here. But being a producer, I get to work with songs all the time. So I think I needed something new, new for me.
And I definitely think that we found that with Doubt Kills. I mean, I can't really remember, because if you think about how we've started this whole project in terms of what we put out, basically our idea is, you know, a kind of a YouTube series to follow while releasing music, right? So it's kind of like two medias rolling at the same time. Which is very exciting for us because we're both big fans of kind of British comedy and that kind of really awkward, style comedy, which is great and it's really good fun. But I can't actually really remember how I remember like the writing the songs.
I think we need to go.
Sorry, I keep jumping.
It's all right.
Sorry.
I think we need to go through it bit by bit because I think I can remember that aspect more.
So after we had the jam, where around that tour, then me and you decided to sit down with some acoustics.
Yeah, and I think it came at a time where maybe I wasn't recording quite so many other bands, so I was like, maybe I can squeeze this in. And that was also the other thing. I was at one point. I was very busy just doing bands. And kind of a few years ago, I decided, actually, I want to work with less people and just do more of what I really want to do. And part of that, after doing those, was like, oh, actually, I do miss I miss band music with friends. The thing I always loved most was being in it with someone. And you've mentioned this before, and it's like, doing the solo stuff, and I still want to do that for creative reasons, but in terms of like building a world and laughing, and
it's definitely it's definitely harder, as in like it's more time consuming, it's slower being in like a duo or a band, but it's just so much more fun. I think like I'll probably always put out solo stuff because I just like writing songs. that when you play a really good gig, or you shoot a video, or you hit like a great moment, it's so much more fun when you get to share that moment. And it's just not the same. Like if we walked off stage from one of my gigs and it was like amazing, you would just find it more enjoyable if it was a Doubt Kills gig.
Of course.
Because we're both into it. We're both in it for the same
Yeah,
thing, right? So I completely understand. It's like that camaraderie, that like it's us against the world.
And that's how I was when I was younger. Like that's all I cared about, and I didn't look past it until the band ended and I had to kind of refine myself. But anyway, when we sat down with the acoustics, we did we had all these grandiose ideas of doing
some
like
fucking weird ideas.
We had some, I think we were leaning way more sort of like Biffy Clyro, rock, anthemic but atmospheric at times, and then I guess like
I think we were focused on the rock, and it's like classic when you start.
We're trying to be something.
Trying too hard.
Yeah.
Trying too hard. And it's like...
But you are just trying to figure out what you are.
Of course. Like, And sometimes just being, you kind of think, oh, this is who we are and this is what we do. We like this stuff. You sort of think, well, is that enough for everyone else? And 9 times out of 10, it is.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's an important thing for creatives to keep in mind, is that the more yourself you are, the better product you're going to put out. If you're talking really kind of businessy about it.
Yeah.
And, we went into it kind of like, with all these great, massive ideas. Like this is like going to be what the fan club's going to stand for. And this is like going to be our sort of message to the world. And then after a few weeks, we were like, I don't fucking believe any of this. It's a load of driven. What is what? Yeah. There was like a wolf thing.
There was a wolf.
I don't know what that was.
It was
about.
Really quite bad, to be honest.
Looking back on it now, it would have been just very hard to convince people that was authentic.
Yeah, and I think what we landed on ultimately,
and we're just never going to be as good as Biffy Clyro.
Well, exactly,
so
never.
Like from any kind of technical point of view, it's like, let's not do that.
So I think ultimately, like when we sat down and we landed on daytime TV, I turned up with a little arpeggiated guitar riff. And
for those of people that don't know what that is, obviously I know what
obviously
that means.
Ben knows.
But what does that mean for the less musically inclined clientele that are listening to this? I know what it means.
I mean, I also don't want
I definitely know what it means.
I don't want to make it sound that impressive either. It's basically you hold like a chord shape and you just keep going up and down and you hold your fingers in the same place. You might move one from fret 3 to fret 2 or something like that.
That's exactly how I would have explained it. Sorry, go on.
You kind of had a vision straight away. You just like, I have something and for the verse, and I played some chords and you had you were like, what if it was this? And it just kind of all I don't really know why we ended up going that way, but I just had it like basically a few chords and a little riff that I liked, which was way different to what we were doing before.
I was just going to say it was so different to what we were planning, but I guess that's what happens when you just relax with it.
And I think like,
this comes really naturally, and then like that then set the whole tone and vibe for the entire project. That's what I feel like
100%. And then what we were doing is we were laughing as we were writing lyrics.
Yeah, which is very important, I think, because I also didn't realize how therapeutic writing those songs would be. I think I went into it like, how can we make the best record we can that loads of people like? And actually, the best thing that we did was, how can we write songs that make each other laugh and like that really means something to us? And it's that real kind of dry humor in some of the lyrics that I love. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
So from there, at that time, I wasn't entirely happy creatively or like where I was in terms of how I saw myself. Felt like I was letting things slip a little bit.
Was this after you'd done some Vincent George stuff. Had you done some solo stuff here, or did that kind of come
yeah,
at the same time?
I had.
I can't remember the timeline.
I think I had put some Vincent George stuff out, but I just felt like, I don't know, I was really happy at home, but then like not with where my life was necessarily going. And I can't remember what year this is, but it's just how I felt. And you actually asked this question to me in another podcast, and I realized I didn't actually answer it properly about how I write songs. And I think we should do another podcast, almost like a part 2 of that. I actually do think probably too vividly about what I'm writing. I'm always thinking like, what does it look like? And sometimes when we're writing, I struggle to communicate what that vision is.
This is like when you try and explain drums to me in the live room, and you're like, "Can you just like, dun da?" I'm like, dun dun, and I'm like, mate, no one will understand that. Yeah.
But yeah, like I wanted to write some really, I was feeling a bit like angry internally, and generally. Genuinely and generally.
That's right. Yeah, that's correct.
There you go, laughing. I can get quite angry internally, like really angry.
I think people would be quite surprised at that.
Yeah,
because you always come across as a very calm person.
Yeah, and I can easily just be like, "Hey, how's it?" But like deep down, sometimes I am very angry, and I realized that I didn't have anywhere for that energy to go. So I was like, I think it was the end of summer and you had gone away, and I'd literally go on a dog walk, and I had a really prolific time of writing, and I was just letting all this stuff out in an ironic, humorous way. And
I remember being in Spain, and I was only there for like 6 days, and I think you sent me 3 songs.
Yeah.
And one of them, can we say the name of them?
No.
Or we'll hold it. But one of them came through, and I just thought it was the funniest title. And I listened to it, and then all of them, and they were similar enough that they sounded great together, but also different enough that it was like, oh, this one's a bit more angry, this one's a bit more like about like kind of love and emotion, and this one's a bit more about like being a bit worried and whatever. Yeah. And I just like very quickly could see this whole thing coming together. Yeah. And that was very exciting. And then I could, I'd go then for a walk, and then I'd text you like a bunch of lyric ideas. Yeah. And the first half of the record seemed to happen really quick.
Very quick. And I found it really therapeutic, and just to get that stuff out. And yes, I'm trying to think why I landed on that. I think, there are a few bands. There's a band called Pup, a Canadian punk band, which I saw live, and they speak about very dark stuff with comedy. And at, I guess, this age, some of that stuff rings true, like maybe a bit too close to the bone. You're like, I think I liked that, because ultimately I am, pretty much a happy-go-lucky person, but sometimes it's
I think
hard.
I think a lot of people feel like that. It's kind of that like stiff upper lip.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we'll just crack on. That's all right. But then, like everyone gets those days where you're like, this is just shit.
So I just wanted to write some songs which blatantly said that, especially from someone you might not expect, which would just be like, this is how even if I feel like this for 3.5 minutes, that's how I feel. I'm going to let it out and then move on. So it's a lot of it isn't like, don't want to wallow in it. You want to get it out and move on. And I think luckily with our sound, it's all a bit ironic, because it's like, it's happy sounding music, but some of the lyrics are sad and happy and laughable, and And I think that was just really fun to tap into that. And it's ultimately us. Like when we're together, we're always laughing.
Yeah.
But then we do have conversations when things are hard as well. So I guess it was just finding how to put how you and me are in our relationship together into the music without trying to be anything.
In terms of kind of genre,
yeah,
how would you describe Doubt Kills?
It's a tricky one.
Because genre is a weird word, isn't it? Like everything blends across.
I think it's punk mentality, but I don't necessarily think it's punk music. Because we have pop sensibilities. We're always going to have a poppier sound then. You know, and I was listening to a lot of grunge at the time. You know, I really connected, you know, maybe it's like I watched the Kurt Cobain film, which I put off for ages, and it's really dark, but I was like, oh, there's something that I can tap into there, but in a more lighter way rather than the dark. So there was lots of things which I was listening to, which I listened to when I was younger, but I was like, being older, hearing it in a different way, I was like, oh, there's things that I can pull from that. So I don't know. And then I was listening to a lot of The Cure because I was like trying to find like, how am I going to play guitar in the verses? And
was that a big, I mean, I can definitely hear the influences on the other songs, not so much daytime TV, but the other songs we've laid down, I can really hear that influence on the guitar, which is cool.
Well, I think also then the music, like we didn't want to be not serious for very long. Actually, there's not many songs like that. There's only a few which set up the other ones, and the ones that are a little bit more heartfelt and, you know, pull at the heartstrings, that's the side which I pulled from. And I think ultimately that in a way became more Doubt Kills, but you kind of have to go through the journey to get there. Look, we talked a lot about the music. There's a long way before people hear these songs, so I don't want to talk too much more about that because, you know, we've got that to come. But
if we go back to the story, so we've jammed acoustically, we've written a bunch of songs. We start, you start putting a full band sound together with like sample drums and stuff, and we're sending them back and forth.
I basically made a template, and I was like, one thing I find really helpful if anyone is sort of writing on their own is make a template for yourself and commit to starting in that exact template. Find your sounds and stick to them. Write the song. You can always add new sounds in, but when you go into like these DAWs, Logic or Pro Tools, Ableton, there's so much choice that it can overwhelm actually doing the job. So if you restrict what you have, that's why ultimately the best thing is just to sit down with a guitar or a piano, you know, and finish the song and then do it. But if you know, I buzzed off hearing things.
I think when you're making a loud record, it's like you want to hear it, like with the drums and stuff. But then we've had studio sessions when we've been trying too hard and we've been focused on like how, like, you know, putting all that stuff in, and we've gone, right, take it all back out, get the acoustics out, let's rewrite this part, and then we put then you get to do the fun stuff. Right?
I think it helped form a sound as well, because I was like, this is the clean sound with the chorus that I like, and then this is the heavy. So it just made every song kind of form a record quite easily. So I found that really useful. But yeah, we did that, and then we were sending songs back and forth. You know, they were really verse and chorus, and then that was it, which is quite normal. But then what happened from then is when we started writing together and we started doing our evening sessions, we made the lyric template, and you know, maybe this is something we can share, other people can use it. I basically did a load of research on YouTube from different YouTubers on what helps them write lyrics. I've always personally had an issue of, like I said, I can see it, I know what I'm trying to, but when you put pen to paper, sometimes you write so many lyrics and you get led completely down the wrong path, and then you can't even remember what you're writing about. what this does is, if you can't explain it in this fashion to another person in the simplest form, and you can't follow, it doesn't make sense. So we found it really useful.
I think also if you are co-writing,
yes,
it's crucial.
Yeah.
Because okay, yeah, you might, unless, like, we always wanted to write the lyrics together. We wanted them, whoever was singing it, it's like we both had our stamp on the words, and I think that was really important because, obviously the words are a very personal part of the song, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I've been writing on my own, I haven't worked like that. I've always been like, it's line by line. I might go back and change a few things, but, generally I don't overthink lyrics. But it was really crucial, that template, when we were writing lyrics together, because you were exactly right. You have to be able to, like, kind of get your point across. And we almost had to write the most, like, comically basic lyrics.
Yeah.
To then be like, right, this is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, to communicate what is trying to be said. Yeah.
And then we'd look at that line and be like, how can we articulate that to an audience in a Doubt Kills way?
Yeah.
How can we make this still meaningful but put our stamp on it? Maybe it's funny, and maybe it's kind of like grumpy, and it's like that's that vibe, right? So that template was a great idea.
Yeah, and it was interesting because sometimes when we did that as well, a lot of those lyrics stuck around because when you have the context of the whole song, simple lyrics are really good.
Well, I remember there was a session when we were writing a song. I won't say what the title is, and it was kind of, well, it's a love song at heart, really. And I remember we were looking at the lyrics to that song, and we used Blink's Always as reference, and we were, because it was kind of that sort of vibe that we wanted, and then we would look at the lyrics like, these are so basic, but that's why they're so good, and that's why that song is so amazing. It's like an amazing pop song, and we were like, yeah, we don't need to be too crazy with this. Like, what do you really want to say? And then we'd demo it and be like, that sounds amazing. Yeah. And that sounds really from the heart. And sometimes you don't have to do too much. But by the way, if any creatives listening to this want a copy of that template, just drop us a message. We'll sort you out.
So yeah, from there we were doing these sessions, and I think with the more comical lyrics, we would just, because you'd done a little bit of acting with some adverts that we'd done before, I think we always thought, it would be cool to tap into that a bit more, like with your Christmas ads.
Got more views than the music got plays classic.
It's so funny setting up doing that. If you haven't seen them, find them, dig them out on the internet. But and I think we knew that was a possibility, and we would just laugh about, because we knew we'd have to do promo at some point. We would just be like, wouldn't it be funny if you did this? And wouldn't it be funny if, we...
Some of it as well was like, wouldn't it be great if a band did that?
Yeah.
What if a band, like, said that or, like, did this? Wouldn't that be cool? And then we were kind of like, well, that's what we should be doing.
I think also we brought it up in terms of doing a comedy series, like, a long time ago when you were doing your solo stuff. I don't know, we fell into something that was laughable, and then... we were like, one day we'll be writing our own comedy series, and
it was funny because it was before People Just Do Nothing came out.
Yeah,
and I remember I was living down in Brighton when I first watched that, and I was like, that's kind of like what I wanted to do. But I mean, they're like a garage band and is very different to what we had in mind. But ultimately, we were like, wouldn't it be funny if it was like a very dry British humor mockumentary style thing about guys making a band? That would be like so cool with that kind of office.
I don't think we ever thought
it's just a funny idea.
I don't think we ever thought it would necessarily be us acting. I think
I just thought it'd be like
one day we'd write something, and then
we were like, just to watch it, someone else do it. We're like, that'd be really cool to see that.
Well, I thought maybe when we were like 50. We'd be like, okay, we've got all these stories to tell, then we'd hire actors. That's kind of more...
we base it on characters we met on tour and stuff like that.
That's kind of more where I thought it would go. And then I think we had like little ideas for little adverts, and you're like, wouldn't it be funny if you did this? And you're kind of pulling from the lyrics. And then, I don't really know how we quite got to The Bench.
No, I can't even remember.
The Bench is the first skit that we've put out, by the way. You can also watch it on YouTube and Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube because we're going to be uploading each skit and then we're going to be uploading it as an episode, and it's going to have some extra footage in there which aren't in the separate skits. So
it's kind of a mockumentary in real time. So it's going to be following the journey of two characters making a band and putting music out.
Yeah.
And we really like it and we think you will as well. So yeah, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, please.
So and I think it's funny, we kind of gained more confidence the more we did it. I don't know how we ended up doing the bench scene, because looking back on it, it's quite ambitious to do an outdoor shoot.
So cold
with new mics we didn't know how to use, do a long script all in one take. Obviously,
that is classic us.
I know,
isn't it?
Obviously, we did cut it up in the end, but I mean, we did like long takes, and it was a bit of improv, so it made the edit quite tricky. But
we also only had one camera, so
we had one camera.
We had to film the same thing 3 times from the front, and then your side, and then my side. But then we would change the script because we make it better as we were going. So we're like, put the camera back in the middle. We got to do that first bit again. And it was so cold.
It was so cold.
Oh my God, it's freezing. I moaned the whole time.
You did.
I whinged a lot. I don't like being cold.
Another little plug. We do have some behind the scenes on all of that. So yeah, we've filmed that whole journey. But I mean, I absolutely loved it. And I do love it. The next one, I really love the next one. And the interesting thing about the next one is the whole skit we wrote out, we didn't even use, because if you looked at the script, it'd literally be like, do this, and that it would literally be the first line, and the rest of it we just scrapped, because the whole act of doing that first bit, I don't want to give it away,
that became the funniest bit.
And sometimes you can't know until you just do it. But it's been a lot of fun doing it, and it's kind of made I think it's made us feel more confident in just being us as well. It certainly has for me, because the thing I like about what we do is that we do a lot of different things. We are guilty of jumping all over the place a bit too much, but yeah, I'm just really excited, obviously, to get the music out. We are going to take you on the journey with Ben and Craig / Jake, and yeah, like it's going to be a fun one. And obviously we hope you enjoy the music. If you don't, I hope you just have a laugh along the way. But yeah, if you haven't listened to we've also did a on the road episode where we did our first photo shoot, which will be revealed in due course once we get there with the characters. And yeah, I guess, we spoke quite a bit about the journey up to this point, but maybe one thing we haven't spoke about is why actually now, after all this time. And I don't know, all I can say is it just feels really good to be putting this kind of, because we've identified a whole message.
I think that's the thing. Yeah. That's why it's now.
Yeah.
There's times in your life when you're like, and creatives listen to this will understand. It's like, now's the time, to do this kind of record or to this kind of record. We couldn't have made this album 10 years ago.
No.
Because the whole point of it is about being in your 30s, having a bit of a midlife crisis. That's what a lot of the songs are about.
Having a moan, laughing at how much you're moaning about, like all that kind of stuff.
They're therapy. It's therapy for us to write it and to create it, but also hopefully anyone out there going through the same sort of thing, feeling a little bit lost, feeling a bit frustrated with what's going on, whatever's going on in their life, they'll get some, comfort out of that, like we do from our favorite records. And so we couldn't have done this 10 years ago because it wouldn't have been sincere. It wouldn't have been authentic. And as you made a good point with bands like Pup, and for me, it was like, bands like Motion City Soundtrack that I've loved.
Yeah.
I've loved for 20 years now, probably. Now I listen to those records and they mean even more. Yeah. Because I just loved them because they were like catchy.
You didn't quite understand it when you were young.
Production's amazing. Yeah, you're like, oh, that's really cool. And like that lyric's funny. And then you like listen to it when you're older and you're like, fuck, I really feel that now.
Yeah.
And that was great. So I think in terms of timing, I don't think it could have been before.
No, it couldn't. It really couldn't. We wouldn't have had this. We wouldn't have landed on these lyrics, which are the most genuine. And yeah, it's just the most us it could be, because we wouldn't have even thought of it. This is where we are right now.
I think also in terms of like the world we've created around it, with like the kind of all the different media we're doing to promote it, it wasn't available as much 10 years ago.
Right.
So to make something, to film skits as high quality vision and audio and all that kind of stuff, and to do podcasts about it and all that kind of stuff, 10 years ago we couldn't do that.
No.
We wouldn't have had the budget. We wouldn't have had, you couldn't find out how to work these things as easy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's just like everything seemed to have, it's like all roads lead to here, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I think it's just perfect timing for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just really am enjoying having it as a constant in my life now. And I think in a weird way, that's what I was afraid of. Whereas now, like, I just look forward to all the funny things that we get to do, even if it's just for us. And I think just going back to why we started wanting to do music together, I remember it was the initial goal was, let's just make the record we've always wanted to make just for us.
Mm-hmm. And if other people like it and get a giggle out of it along the way, then job done, right?
Yeah. And then along the way, obviously, we had ideas that were beyond the music, and hopefully we can actually realize all these ideas, because, you know, whether it's to merch and all this stuff that we spoke about, which is going to be quite hard to pull off, but it's all there. It's going to be very rewarding by the time we get to the end, because it's a lot of work. But yeah, really,
this is why as well I'm glad that we've documented the behind the scenes, because I love watching that about bands.
Yeah.
And I don't think I know a lot of bands do it, but it doesn't get done enough, because it's bloody hard work. When you're trying to like make a record, you're also trying to you're documenting yourself. So you're like, right, we've got to write the song, we've got to record it, we also need to film ourselves recording, and then we need to edit that recording of us recording the album. But looking back on what we have made, it's great. And as I said, there's lots of cool stuff coming out. You know, we did our first photo shoot up in Gateshead. We've got
with Eddie Maynard,
by
the way.
Amazing photographer, very cool guy. And so we've got a podcast about that, but we also filmed a behind the scenes video on YouTube. So we've got this big Doubt Kills world coming out over the next, coming out from now on, really.
Yeah,
so,
basically.
Very exciting. Very, very exciting, and very fulfilling creatively, I must say as well.
It is. It is indeed. So on that note, I want to say thank you for listening. We hope you are going to come along for the journey, because we don't know exactly where it leads right now in terms of for Ben and Craig, but please share it about. Let people think, what is this weird thing? Is it a band? Is it not? You guys know. I don't know. Is it a band?
What's funny is that it might end up being a sitcom with a soundtrack. We don't know, because
I kind of feel that's the way it's
because
heading.
It's like it.
If I'm being honest,
well, to be honest, we've spent longer filming stuff, and in terms of minutes of media, there's way more of that than there is songs.
I know.
But you know what? We wanted to make a sitcom, mate, so there you go. That would be classic. Just all these years later being like, so you've accidentally made a sitcom. Yeah. Cool, though.
On that note, thanks for listening. See you again.
Bye now. Thank you for listening this week. We hope you enjoyed the conversation.
If you like what you've heard today, please share with a friend and follow us
wherever you listen to your podcast to help us grow the Lower Your Shoulder community.
See you on the next one.